Hello, welcome to part 4 of the Magic Finger. Do you remember last time we left Mr. and Mrs. Gregg, Philip and William all flying around, having a little bit of an adventure? They'd had an awful shock when they first woke up and discovered that they had no arms and they were tiny, but now they're enjoying their new wings. Let's find out what happens next. They all look down, remember they're flying in the sky, and there below them in their own garden they saw 4 enormous wild ducks. The ducks were as big as men, and what is more, they had great long arms like men instead of wings. Let's have a look at the picture here. What do you think can have happened? Mr. and Mrs. Gregg and their children are tiny and have got wings. Here are 4 ducks that are enormous and they have arms instead of wings. What's your guess? What do you think has happened there? Let's see if the story tells us anything else. The ducks were walking in a line to the door of the Greggs' house, swinging their arms and holding their beaks high in the air. "Stop!" called the tiny Mr. Gregg, flying down low over their heads. "Go away! That's my house!" The ducks looked up and quacked. The first one put out a hand and opened the door of the house and went in. The others went in after him. The door shut. Doesn't look like Mr. Gregg can make the ducks do what he wants them to do, does it? The Greggs flew down and sat on the wall near the door. Mrs. Gregg began to cry. "Oh dear, she sobbed. "They have taken our house. What shall we do? We have no place to go." Even the boys began to cry a bit now. Situation's not looking so fun anymore, is it? Look at them perched on a wall. Ooh, what normally perches on a wall? I think it's birds, isn't it? They're behaving like birds with their wings. "We will be eaten by cats and foxes in the night," said Philip. "I want to sleep in my own bed," said William. "Now then," said Mr. Gregg, "it isn't any good crying. That won't help us. Shall I tell you what we are going to do?" "What?" they said. Mr. Gregg looked at them and smiled. "We are going to build a nest." "A nest?" they said. "Can we do that?" Why do you think they decided to build a nest? They're people. People don't live in nests. So why have they decided to build a nest? And why is Philip worried that they'll get eaten by cats and foxes in the night? Pause the video so you can have a think about that. Okay, I hope you've sorted out why they think they need to build a nest and why they might get eaten by foxes and cats. "We must do it," said Mr. Gregg. "We've got to have somewhere to sleep. Follow me." They flew off to a tall tree, and right at the top of it, Mr. Gregg chose the place for the nest. Wonder why he chose the nest to be right at the top. Perhaps he felt that was the safest place, out of harm's way. "Now, we want sticks," he said. "Lots and lots of little sticks. Off you go, all of you, and find them and bring them back here." "But we have no hands," said Philip. "Then use your mouths." They look even more like birds now, don't they? Have you ever seen a bird collecting materials to build a nest? That's what they do, isn't it? Birds carry bits of twig and moss, maybe bits of sheep wool, anything else that looks soft and cosy and would make a good nest to line the inside. Mrs. Gregg and the children flew off. Soon they were back, carrying sticks in their mouths. Mr. Gregg took the sticks and started to build the nest. "More," he said. "I want more and more and more sticks. Keep going." The nest began to grow. Mr. Gregg was very good at making the sticks stick together. Look, you can see the nest that he's building. He does look like he's doing quite a good job with that, doesn't he? Wonder how he knows how to build a nest. I wouldn't know how to build a nest. Would you? Oh, 2 pages at once again, sorry. Oh, here we go. Here's another picture. Oh, and now Mrs. Gregg is in the nest. Perhaps they finished building it. Look at that. After a while he said, "That's enough sticks. Now I want leaves and feathers and things like that to make the inside nice and soft." The building of the nest went on and on. It took a long time, but at last it was finished. "Try it," said Mr. Gregg, hopping back. He was very pleased with his work. "Oh, isn't it lovely?" cried Mrs. Gregg, going into it and sitting down. "I feel I might lay an egg any moment." Ah, so that's that bit, isn't it, in the story? That's what that illustration is showing. The others all got in beside her. "How warm it is," said William. "And what fun to be living so high up," said Philip. "We may be small, but nobody can hurt us up here." "But what about food?" said Mrs. Gregg. "We haven't had a thing to eat all day." "That's right," Mr. Gregg said, "so we will now fly back to the house and go in by an open window and get the tin of biscuits when the ducks aren't looking." "Oh, we will be pecked to bits by those dirty great ducks," cried Mrs. Gregg. "We shall be very careful, my love," said Mr. Gregg, and off they went. But when they got to the house, they found all the windows and doors closed. There was no way in. So, you've already had one question, which was, why did the Greggs decide to build a nest? Your second question for today is, what do you think the Greggs will do for food now they know they're locked out of their own house? Remember, they don't have hands, they can't carry things. Anything they carry has to be in their mouths. They can't get into their house. They're tiny birds. Well, they're the size of tiny birds, and they've certainly got wings. So could they go to a takeaway to get a carry out for dinner? Could they go to a supermarket and buy their dinner? What do you think they could do to get some food? Okay, I will talk to you again next time. Bye for now.